Okay, so continuing on, I'm gonna adjust this scale so it matches the 1 inch equals 80 feet. Before I do want to apologize that these naming conventions, are a little messed up. When I created these scales, I created them when I did my project, and I didn't really worry about naming them because I knew what they were. But you can see a lot of them, they say 1 inch equals 30 feet here, but go by the name that's in the gray. So this one, if I click on it, it's 1 inch equals 50. This one is 1 inch equals 30. And so on. 1 inch equals 4 feet is really a quarter of an inch equals a foot. But it's just another way to say it. Because when you name these, you really can't do, a half. You can't really type in a half of an inch. It won't accept it as a naming convention. So you have to do it as like, instead of half inch equals a foot, you do 1 inch equals 2 feet. And stuff like that. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 1 inch equals 50 feet one, and I'm going to adjust this so it does the 1 inch equals 80 feet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on it, and I'm going to edit family. Basically, and if you like this type of scale, you basically all you got to do is just change the numbers and the labels. So 1 inch equals 80 feet. 2 inches would obviously be 160 feet. 3 inches would be 240, and 4 inches would be 320. And then again, you can always double check just to make sure. So you can use dimensions. Dimensions are turned off, so I'm just going to use lines to measure. So from here to here is an inch. From here to here is an inch. So that's another 80 feet, obviously. So that 160 is correct. And then from here to here is another inch. Is this correct? And then from there to there is another, is correct as well. And then this is a nice scale bar that I created because you can see the four quadrants are divided up differently. So this is a full inch. This one shows a scale where, you have it's only divisible by 2, so you have, 40 feet and 40 feet. This one's divisible by 4, so you have 20, 40, 60, 80. And this one's divisible by 8, so you have 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80. So that's kind of like a nice scale to work with as your basis one. So if you want to, you create a scale like this, you could go in and save it as a family, and you save it right into your project file. So now it would be 1 inch equals 80 feet. You could save it as, and then load into project and close. And then now if you go back to that view, you can find 1 inch equals 80 and turn it into that. So that's this is a nice kind of scale that I created that gives a nice visual. Obviously if you'd only want to use up to the 160, you can. Now if you haven't, if you didn't use the site template file to start your project, and you want to get these scales, because what you can see here, if I go to my load family and annotations, you can see like I don't have the 1 inch equals 30 or the other ones that I created. Like these here, 1 inch equals 30, and the 4 and everything like that. I don't have those in because I didn't save them as a family when I created them, but they're still within the project. So if you ever want to get those, obviously you can just open the template file, the site plan file. So if I open another, say like I'm in, if I go to the desktop, I'm just going to open a different project just to show you this. So say this is, say this is the project that your project file that you're working on, and you didn't actually use the template file to create that, but you kind of want to start to get these kind of these kind of like family things, title blocks in there, so scales in there, so you don't have to kind of recreate them. You can do one of two things. The first thing, if you're in your project folder, you can do transfer project standards, which I show in tutorial. I forget what tutorial exactly. I think it's like F or something like that. There's a whole tutorial itself on transfer and project standards. So what you do is within your project folder, first thing you do is you open the template file, then go into your project file, and you hit transfer project standards, and you can copy from the template file, and then you can check none, and then you can basically copy over all different types of stuff. I show it, the transfer project standards that I show is how to transfer over pipes, this pipe settings and the ductwork settings, because you need those so the pipe in and ductwork works properly when you start to create those. But you can also, you can see here, you can bring in floor types, wall types. If you click on annotation category, annotation family types, it'll load in the annotation types. So if I go to the annotate tab and hit symbol, that they should populate here. If they don't populate here, so if they don't transfer over, which you can see, if I go back to that annotate tab, you can see like that kind of simple north arrow I loaded in didn't come in, and that new graphic scale of the 1 inch equals 80 feet didn't come in. There's still a way to bring them in, but you can always double check. So like if I click on this, you can see it's generic annotation is the family type. So if I go back into that, the transfer project standards selection, you can see that annotation family label types probably wasn't the right category, but you'll also notice that generic annotation types isn't an option. So it's probably something that can't be transferred over. But the other way to bring it in is if you go back to the template file where it is, you can click on it, hit edit type, and then when you hit load into project, you can pick your project name, hit OK, and now you can bring it in that way. So that's a little workaround if you can't get it to come in with project standards. You can do it that way as well. Obviously, transfer project standards is the easiest way, particularly for stuff like pipe settings and ductwork settings that I show in the tutorial for that. But again, you can do wall types and window types. I believe there's one for one. Maybe not. So you can see like stuff like door types and stuff like that are something that you can't bring in. But if you created like a specific door type, you can do it the same way, where you click on the door, hit edit family, and then you'd hit load into project and select your the project that you want to load it into that doesn't have that door type, and then you can load it in that way. But I'm going to close that out for now. So that's pretty much it for that. I will show you, actually I'm going to show you what the basic scale looks like. That comes with Revit is very crappy. So you can see if I load this in, this is what the basic scale with Revit comes in, looks like, which is kind of not great. So even if you didn't want to load in the ones that I created, I would even recommend maybe just fixing this a little bit, where you can take this, edit its family, and at the very least maybe you just do that, adding in the black spaces so it reads a little bit better. So you can start to do this just to fix it quickly. And then you can do create field region. And then create field region. I had to do two separately because if I try to do something like this, you can see that these corners are touching, and it's going to give me an error message saying that it doesn't close properly. So that's why I had to do the two separate field regions. And I actually want to edit the field region, so it's a solid fill. So now that starts to read a little bit better, and you can load it into the project. So now it starts to read a little bit better. Maybe you can thin it a little bit, but there's, it's different. It's kind of like difference of opinion. Like, do you only want those, two divisions here so you can get a 2 foot and an 8, and like a 8 foot read in here? Or do you want to, give whoever's viewing this, more of a scale so they can actually start to measure things a little bit quicker with more of a breakup in dimension? So, it's up to you. And then, if you have this, so this was 1/4. If you're doing something that's crazy, let's see what they have for scales here. So like 1/32. If you had a scale that was at 1/32 equals a foot, you could, easily do that by going to edit, doing the edit family, and then I believe this is where the 1 foot is. Let's double check. So this one is a foot here. So 1/32 equals a foot, means that 1 inch equals 32 feet. So this would be 32 feet. This one would be 16 feet. This is not, for some reason, it's not created properly with the right dimensions. So that's something that you want to be careful with the scale. I actually noticed this the other day, that the scales that come with Revit aren't actually, this line was off a little bit. So this one is another inch, so that would be 64 feet. And then this one I believe is 2 inches, so that would be 128 feet. Oops, cancel. So this one you'd probably want to save as first, the 132, save, and then load in the project. So now you have the 30 seconds scale. Now this is where, if you had a 32 scale in this fashion, those different divisions would make it a little bit better. So this is 1 inch equals 30 feet, which is a little bit close to the 1/32. So just to compare, obviously, it's a little bit off. Compare, between the two. But you can see here, this one gives, a viewer a lot more division to see from than just these two. Just, the separation here, between, 16ths and 30 seconds, where this one has a little bit more. So it's a preference, personal preference on what you want to show. And obviously this isn't something that's too important. At least if you have something, it's better than not having a graphic scale at all. And again, this is something just like the north arrow, you could probably go on Revit City to find a custom graphic scale. But again, as I just showed you, they're very easy to kind of manipulate and create your own. So it's not too hard. But that ends this tutorial, and how to start to set up your sheets with scales and north arrows and some text.